QSI CPD First Thursday Club. We are delighted this morning to have with us Dr. Ezekiel from the University of Wolverhampton. He is a reader in construction management, and he's going to talk to us about how to publish lessons learned, an academic view on research and writing papers, basically. Ezekiel has a huge track record in this. He's published over 120 publications of various kinds, from books to papers to articles, so he knows what he's talking about. So let me hand over to you, Dr. Ezekiel. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Susan, and welcome everybody. I wouldn't say good morning because you might be joining from a different time zone. So,
very true.
Yes, so happy to be given this chance to come and talk with you regarding how to publish. And I would try and share from my experience, but some of the things I will say they're like the norm, the practice that people follow. So publication is something that is good, and this is what I will cover. I will cover what is publication, in other words, known as dissemination. And then I'll look at different types of publications. And then we'll look at the outlets, where you can publish. Then I will then go into a little bit more detail onto where, what, when, and how to publish, especially if you are looking at the academic type of publication. But before that, we would have discussed that there are different types of publications. It doesn't have to be a full academic journal paper. And then after that, I'll give you an example of a journal paper that we published recently. That will give a great and broad picture as to the journey you can undertake to publish. The take-home point here is that everyone is encouraged to publish. You have an experience, you have something to share, you have knowledge that is with you. Some of it could be tacit knowledge. We have a high amount of tacit knowledge in construction, particularly when there's a high turnaround in projects, that you move from one project to the other. We are known not to have the time to sit down and write lessons learned in one project. By the time this project is rounding up, the next one is calling, so you rush. So you have tacit knowledge, in you that can be explicated. And one way you could do that is through publications. So I'll be encouraging you to aim to publish in one way or the other. And I hope that I'll convince you that it's not a difficult task to do, and that it's something you can do. And I'll be talking, as to why you publish. And that's the beginning of my presentation. Okay. So publication is you holding out a placard and saying, here, this is information. And why do you need to do that? I've put a couple of reasons here. The number one reason is that you have something important, a story, an experience, a difficulty you encountered, and you solve it in a particular way, and you want other people to know. So you might have encountered a situation that made you to be innovative, and therefore you want to share with others so that people can learn. So dissemination, plays a key significant role not only to you, the person doing the dissemination, but to the beneficiaries. So the information you put out there will help somebody someday in some way. And that's why it is very, very important to aim to publish. So it will showcase what you are doing and let people know who you are. So in terms of networking, your network will grow because people will read what you've written and they'll contact you for that purpose. Some just to, some people may be doing something similar to you. They'll want to connect with you. Now with technology, you can connect with people globally. And so when you publish, you find out that your network will definitely grow. A second reason why dissemination is important is that it can serve as a building block. What do I mean by a building block? Knowledge is progressive. There are things we don't know as we should fully know. So that means knowledge in certain areas is not yet absolute. So we're adding to knowledge in key areas, and by publishing, you are adding to a level of knowledge in a particular subject matter. And collectively, we build up knowledge. So in terms of knowledge management, knowledge generation, we could say that uh, publication gives it a bottom-up approach. If we take an example of Beam, for instance, we have different levels of maturity in Beam, and Beam is progressing. So if you have an experience that you've encountered that is unique to you concerning the application of Beam, you share it through a publication, other people will learn, and then we progress. Somebody else will learn something, share it, everybody progresses. So by publishing, it helps us to build, an entire structure by making different contributions. Another reason why publications are important is that they could serve as a benchmark for others that are up and coming. It could be that some people want to research a particular area. They could look at what you've done, how you've researched it, and they can follow your process. Yeah, it could be we're trying to measure the performance of a building in a certain aspect. If you've done such an assessment and you've published it, then people could see, okay, this is what we know so far. This is how buildings perform. And, your publication serves as a benchmark until somebody, brings additional knowledge, to move the benchmark higher. So collectively, publications help, and obviously, good publications, good information, good research can inform policies. So it means that the public sector, they listen to us, other practitioners, they listen to us, and they can take a cue from publications, to update their policies. So given the importance and significance of publications, where should you publish? There are different types of publications and there are different outlets where you can publish. Yeah. It could be a short newspaper article you do. Some newspapers, will allow for element of dissemination, especially if they interview you. So it could be you have a landmark project or a unique project that was carried out in a certain locality, you know, due to the impressive nature of the project, the newspapers, it could be in that region, or it could even be a national newspaper, they could feature it as a story. and then they interview you, and then you give them inside knowledge into how you were able to maneuver that project. And, that is a publication. It is dissemination. We are all disseminating good practice. Then professional bodies will have newsletters or magazines, where they, publish what is happening in that sector. And you could chip in by putting a short article, in a newsletter or a magazine, you know, and you could do it yourself too. You could write a short story and throw it out there on the internet, and people will listen. So there are different ways in which you could publish, and then you could move on to academic types of papers. I'll try and focus a little bit more here, not because it is down my alley. It is partly so, but I want to encourage as many of you as our industry, to aim to, deliver academic, journal papers. It is possible. You have a good amount of knowledge that can be disseminated, and I'll be sharing with you, shortly as to how you can do that. I know you may say the time is not there, but once there's a will, there's always a way, and you could always work things out. So in terms of academic publications, you could even write a book or contribute a chapter to a book. And I've seen some practitioners who have written books. One that readily comes to mind is a gentleman called Michael Dallas, if I remember his name very well. And he did a good book on risk management. That was ages ago. So we have people in industry, that have made the effort, found the time to produce books, and such books, they become useful, to students that are learning. They become useful to lecturers that are teaching students. So we all have contributions to make, and publications, can go a long way to be a benefit to many people in different ways that you may not quantify. So keep publishing, make the effort, and people will benefit from your publication. So quite a range of outlets to target. So what is it that you should publish? Okay. I've listed here a few things. One is innovation. The other one is novelty. You may say this is a duplication, but let me try and distinguish these two, if I may do so successfully. Innovation generally is recognized as something that is new to you. So novelty too reflects something that is new, but I distinguish them here in the sense that innovation is qualified, i.e., something that is new to you as an individual is innovation to you. Okay, something that is new to you as an organization is innovation. But whilst your organization could find something new, another organization might not find that particular information new to them. So it means to your organization, that is innovation, but to the other, organization, it's not innovation to them because they didn't know it before. So innovation could have a user restriction that is innovative to this particular user. Whereas novelty cuts across. Novelty means something that nobody knew before. So that means it'll become new to everybody, whereas innovation is new to the particular individual or organization that is viewing either that product or information or whatever it is. So if you encounter something innovative in your organization, you could publish it, or you have found a novel way of addressing certain issues, then you could publish it to say, okay, this particular way has not been used before. And we've come up with this strategy and it's very effective. So it becomes a novel idea. And if you publish it, people will gladly look at it and, embrace it. So let me move on. Experiences, you could have unique experiences which you want to publish because people may not have encountered such unique experiences, but in future, they may get to a position where they'll have similar experiences like that you've encountered. And they will now look back on what you did, and learn lessons from you and apply it to their situation. And that's why it is good, to throw out your knowledge and experience out there because it will definitely benefit somebody somewhere, somehow, or someday. So you might have experienced lots of benefits, in a certain project because of something you did. So you want to say, okay, these are the 10 benefits we achieve on this project. It could be a journey you've gone through. Maybe you are concentrating on a particular type of project. Maybe yours is doing piling, and you've done piling different types of soils, different types of localities, and you've built up experience over the years. So you could say, this is our journey. This is what we've learned. This is how we've adapted as we went on this journey. This is how we've changed along the way. And this is where we are. And that development can help a newcomer to see the trajectory that they will pass through. And, it can help them to bypass certain mistakes, certain challenges, and, move faster because you've published your journey. Another type of publication you can do is a rejoinder. A rejoinder is to pick up a publication that somebody has done and comment on it. It could be that you want to add a certain angle to the story that has already been published, then you could say you are doing a rejoinder. Sometimes it could be that you want to challenge, what has been written. And, by challenging somebody else, it gives them the opportunity to reflect on what they wrote initially, and then they can come back, and do a rejoinder to your own rejoinder. Such a discourse is encouraged, because it's viewed as a healthy debate. We are all trying to grow in knowledge. So somebody publishes a certain view, another person comes up with a different view, and then you now generate a big debate. People now begin to discuss, okay, how do we put these 2 or 3 contrasting views together? It could be that they are contextual. But by doing a rejoinder, you're stirring up that debate and it helps to build up knowledge. So rejoinders are encouraged. Another type of publication you could do is a review. So you could review, say BEAM, I just picked on BEAM. You could just pick any other topic and review, what is known up to date. What's the story about BEAM, where it started, how it has progressed, where it is now. These are the latest advances as far as BEAM is concerned. These are the latest technologies. These are the latest ways in which BEAM is utilized. So their scope, to publish many things. And therefore, if you are willing to, you could always find something to publish. Okay. So when should you publish? Ideally, you should publish when the message is still fresh. Okay. When you encounter something new and
went wrong. Please try again.
sorry, my fault. I switching on for time and it's picking up my my voice. So when information is fresh, especially if it's an innovation or you've come up with something new, you are excited, then you want to throw it out there so that people will get to know. And another time to publish is when a call is made. It could be a newsletter has approached you to write an article, a magazine has asked you to publish something, and in the case of we in academia, it could be a journal that they'll sometimes put out a call for a special issue, and then you respond to that call. Okay, but anytime you have information that will benefit people, then it's worthwhile to publish it. And as I said, the time may be a constraint, but if you work on it, there's a way you could delve into publication. So you could advance debate, which we've talked about. Okay. So now, what I will do is at this point, I'll try and move the presentation towards an academic type of publication where you are publishing in a journal. Again, when it comes to academic journals, the rigor varies. You start from minimal rigor to very high rigor. And so some journals, especially if they're just starting, they could say, okay, we're a bit liberal. Yeah, we're not too rigorous. And then those that have been there for long, then you could find out that the rigor, increases, and some also the amount of words to write, the volume. Some will tell you we accept short articles, some will accept just abstracts, and then some will accept full length papers. And even with the full length papers, some will tell you we want a maximum of 7,000 words. Some will say you're allowed 10,000 or more. So the scope varies, So it means that if you find something to write, you'll always find an outlet that will receive your content and publish it. So if you want to publish, these are the sort of things you will reflect in your article. You'll generally give an introduction, which will introduce the subject matter and provide context. And then towards the end of that introduction, you'll now identify problems to say, okay, given this understanding of BEAM, for example, we're looking at BEAM, okay, then you could say, okay, the problem is maybe quantity surveyors, because I'm doing this presentation with QSI, and this is just hypothetical, but I'm not saying that that's real. You could say maybe quantity surveyors experience challenges, while using BEAM. What are these challenges? Few are known, but the entire scope of challenges is not known. That is either a problem or a question I want to go and investigate. So finding knowledge helps, to come up with something new that you can publish. So you now do what is pre-known, which is like a literature review to say, okay, this is what we know about BEAM. This is what people have reported about BEAM. And then as far as QFCs are concerned, this is what they have said about BEAM. This is what quantity surveyors have reported about using BEAM, and these are some of the problems they've come up with. Now, given this known position, what are the additional challenges that quantity surveyors are experiencing while using BEAM? And that's what I want to go and investigate. So to do that, you will follow some methodologies, and I've highlighted methodologies, so I'll go a little bit more into the methodologies. So now I say, okay, these are the methods I'll use to find out these additional challenges of using BEAM. And then you apply those methods, and then you come up with results. So the results will be your findings. Say, okay, I've gone to do my research. This is what I have established, that literature before my research reported 5 main challenges which quantity surveyors encounter while using BEAM. Now that I've done my research, I've concluded that there are actually 8 main challenges, which means I have been able to find out 3 additional challenges that were not reported in literature before. That becomes your contribution to knowledge. And then people will be glad to hear, to say, okay, yes, we recognize these 5, people have talked about them, but these 3 that you've come up with, they are new, and, we need to be aware of them and to be mindful, of the pitfalls, regarding these additional challenges. So that's the nature of academic research, that you follow a protocol that helps you to come up with new knowledge that demonstrates novelty. So when you've done your findings, you do your discussion. A discussion is where you compare your findings with literature, with what was published. So in the simple hypothetical example that I've given, you will now say, okay, these 5 challenges were reported before. Then you put the people that reported those 5 challenges. Then you now say these 3 have not been reported before. So discussion is to compare your view with the view of people that have published before you. Not which one is better, but to see whether it's similar or different. Yeah. So in this case, you now say, okay, I've come to the conclusion that there are 8 challenges instead of 5. Yeah. So you're just saying, okay, what you have is different from what was there before, and therefore it is novel. Okay. So that's the structure of a presentation. Let me check my phone to see how I'm doing with time. 8:30, 8:29. So I'll try and finish in about 10 minutes so that it will give opportunity for discussions. Okay. So methodologies, concern data, how you go about getting data, and how you treat that data to make sure the data is reliable, and how you analyze the data to come up with valid conclusions that will be acceptable. And people can also, the idea is that other people should be able to follow your process, the methodology you use, and arrive at the same conclusion. That's the whole story about methodology, that what you do should be replicable, that somebody else, can start from where you started, follow the same process, and they'll arrive at the same conclusion. So it means you've done a good work, you've followed due diligence. And that's what methodology is about. So, again, this is a very broad subject matter. So I'm trying to pick a few bits and pieces, just to highlight what needs to be done. So in terms of your methodology, you could use what is known as a quantitative approach or a qualitative approach. Basically, a quantitative approach, the data you gather will be mostly numerical. But in a qualitative approach, the data you gather will be mostly descriptive. And there is scope to combine the two. The idea is, what is it that you want to find out? And the nature of what you want to find out will determine, whether you go for a quantitative approach, whether you go for a qualitative approach, whether you go for a mixed approach. Another underpinning reason why you could go either quantitative or qualitative, it deals with the mindset of the investigator. Some people see the wall as, consisting of hard facts that can always be measured. So if your mindset is that way, and there's nothing wrong about that, then you may go the quantitative way. Okay? But some people see the wall as something that is subjective, something that needs to be discovered, something that needs to be explored, and that you cannot put it in numerical terms. And therefore, you want to go and look at perceptions, feelings, so it may point you towards the qualitative side. Now, neither the quantitative or the qualitative mindset is better than the other. It only means that the way they perceive reality is different. But if you have two researchers that are investigating one subject matter, one approaches it quantitatively, the other one approaches it qualitatively, if they do the right things, following those two streams, they will arrive at the same conclusion. Okay. So the nature of the problem and your mindset will determine how you go about getting the data, analyzing it, and generating conclusions out of it. Now, when you have decided which approach to use, then how do you access the data? Okay, normally the data you need is somewhere else. It could be in some documents published somewhere, which you need to go and find. But most often, you may find out that you need to go and look for information from other people, in which case you go to ask them to help you with the information. And that's why you see students and lecturers like us, we come to industry to say, I'm doing this piece of research. Can you help, either do an interview with me or answer, fill a questionnaire for me? It's effort to collect data. Okay, so to collect data, you use instruments. It could be a questionnaire or a set of interview questions. But we have something known as ethnography. So if you are in industry, you are a practitioner, then ethnography may be a good way for you to collect data. What is ethnography? It means that the person collecting the data is part of the practitioners that are being observed. Okay, so let's say I want to look at the challenges quantity surveyors experience when they are using BEAM. Then I myself, I'm a QS and I'm working in a company and we use BEAM. So me and my 5 other colleagues, we use BEAM, and I am studying the challenges that we are facing when we are using BEAM. So you could see I am part of the group. So that type of research is known as ethnography. And that's something you can easily do if you are working in industry. But if I'm not working in industry, if I'm coming, say, from a university and I want to investigate the same subject matter, then I'll come and say, tell me, what are the challenges you encounter when you're using BIM? So I'm not part of you. Therefore, my approach is not ethnography. But if you are part of the study, then it is called ethnography. Okay, so I collect data. One of the things you need to be mindful of is the validity of the data. Okay, so that means you ensure that the data you collect is valid, and you do so in different ways. There are different ways you can check validity, but in a simple way, you make sure that you ask the right questions. Because if you write a sentence, one word in the sentence can change its meaning and skew it in a different direction. So you make sure you word, the request in such a way that the people will give you the appropriate information that you are looking for. And I'm speeding up because there are many things to talk. So I pick on bits and pieces to talk about. So we could go into more details during the Q&A. Volume, how much information should you collect? So if I want to study the challenges QSs experience when they are using BIM, how many QSs should I talk to? 10, 20, 50, 100. What is enough? That is what the volume is about. So you need to find sufficient information that by the time you come up with conclusions, we'll say, yes, definitely, this represents the population. There are different ways to determine what is enough in terms of volume. So you collect that information, then what you need to do is to analyze it. Okay, so you break it down, go into nitty-gritty to see what are the people saying, and then, are there linkages between the pieces of information? Okay, so it could be that the challenges that QSs in a small organization face are different from the challenges which QSs in a bigger organization face. So these are the kind of things you do when you are doing analysis. Begin to see whether there are patterns, whether there are correlations, here and there. So you go into the depth of such analysis while you are generating your results. Yeah. So I've talked about validity, making sure you do the right thing, get the right information. Reliability, I touched upon it previously. That is where you make sure that your work can stand the test of time. Yeah, that it is reliable. Yeah, validity means it's telling the truth. Reliable means that it works. So example of of my phone, which I'm using here to check the time, valid in terms of time. It tells me the time here is 8:39. Yeah. So that means it's valid as far as time is concerned, but reliable. Does it give me accurate time? That's reliability. It may be 1 minute late, 1 minute ahead of time. So that means it's not reliable. It is valid, it gives me the time, but reliability, may be a different concept. Yeah. So quickly, when you have come up with results, you put them together, right? And then you send to the people that will publish it for you. So depending on where you are publishing it, yeah, they will get your work reviewed by peers, just so that people say, yes, we agree with this work. It is credible. The findings are very good. The findings will benefit people. Go ahead and publish it. So depending on the outlet that you are using and the publisher, the amount of review, could be more rigorous than others. Sometimes the editor will look at it and they have expertise in that area. Then they say it's good, we publish it. Sometimes they send it to reviewers. The reviewers come up with comments. And sometimes the reviewers can ask you to address certain things, to say, okay, we think some information is missing here. There's some information that is not clear, provide clarity. It helps to enrich the final publication. And so it is a good process that that can benefit the person publishing. Then when that is done, then it depends on the publisher how soon they want to publish it. Normally, it depends on how many publications have line up. It could be that they have 100 and they're publishing 10 per time. So it means you have to wait for 11 issues before it gets to your turn. Yeah, but eventually it will get there in the public domain, and then people now read and know what you have done. So authorship, you could I'll soon finish. You could publish alone, and you could publish with other people. You could join hands with other people, and that's why I said if you are in industry and time is a big challenge, you could partner with other people. You could find academics that will work with you and then do some of the work, and it makes it easier that way. If 2, 3, or 4 people are putting a publication together, it spreads the workload and makes it faster. So this is a simple example of a publication that we did recently. I will quickly go through it so that we go into Q&A. It looked at what is a good therapy room. So these are psychologists that people come to see them for therapy, but the subject matter was the room itself. How good is a room for therapy? It should be voluminous, it should be tight, should it be well lit? So that was the subject. So you could see our work could be interdisciplinary. So construction is combining with psychology, to come up with things to study. So this one was a qualitative study, involving interviews, and we interviewed 8 people. 3 of them were therapists and 5 of them were clients. Yeah. And these were some of the findings quickly. Obviously, because people are coming for therapy, so confidentiality was a key feature in a therapeutic room. Privacy, was a key feature too. And then things like the building, the interior, the color inside, it helps some clients to relax, and engage with the therapy session. Yeah, how bright is the room? Yeah, how distant is the room from neighboring properties, i.e., if it combines with privacy, is noise coming up from an adjacent building and interfering with the therapeutic session. So these were some of the things we explored, and how clients and therapists look at these attributes differently. But because of time, I wouldn't go into that study. I will want to put a pause here so that if there are questions, then we could look at those. So this is how the write-up looks like, at the end of the day. But let me conclude here to say, yes, publications are encouraged, they are beneficial, and everybody is encouraged to publish in one way or the other. It could be a short article, a 1-pager, it could be a long article, yeah, so feel free, to engage the process. So let me stop here to see, what people might want me to emphasize more. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ezekiel. That was really interesting, an area that I knew very little about. So thank you. Hope we've maybe inspired some people out there. So if anyone has any questions for Ezekiel, just shout out or put your hand up or type it in the chat, whatever you're comfortable with. Silence. While you're all just thinking about that, as Ezekiel was talking, I was thinking, well, if anybody is sort of thinking, where do I start here? And you fancy writing a short article and you're wondering where you publish it, there is always the QSI, which is our in-house quarterly magazine. So if you do feel you'd like to do that, please just get in touch.
Yeah, definitely.
You've stunned them all into silence with that, Ezekiel. It was very detailed. It was interesting.
I hope it's for good.
Yes, absolutely. Probably something that's very different to most of the people here. And
yes. Okay, while they're thinking, let's check. Is there anybody here who has published an article before?
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Go ahead, Steve. Just say one or two things about what and where it was published.
QSI predominantly, and I found that doing something for a publication at that level is fairly easy, but I also did the technical, well, predominantly wrote the RICS guidance notes for employer's agent, which was supposed to be a book that I was working on with Glynis, but she got too tied up with work with Wolverhampton, so we never got the book published. And we actually had an issue because the reviewer for Wiley's was the initial one wanted to do all of the links to various different other publications themselves because they wanted to predominantly promote their own books. Spent a good year writing my section of the book, and then the next reviewer said, I need all these links. Which to go back through a year's worth of work and add all the links back in was just not going to happen. So I gave in. But the RICS guidance notes did get published, but I have to say, writing a book, I wouldn't try ever again.
You never can say. Maybe in future you might reconsider.
Well, when they're talking about 100,000 words, it doesn't sound very much. But then when you actually get down to trying to find the time to do it, it is a lot.
Yeah,
it's a lot of time to do that, especially with doing research for case law and stuff that you want to refer to. It's just an astronomical amount of work.
Yeah. So what you're talking about is top end. It can be very, very rigorous and intense. But
yes,
you could do the smaller bits. Easier bits.
Articles are much easier to do, and you can not necessarily do them in sort of an afternoon, but a couple of days of thinking, day thinking about it, and day putting it together. It's not too bad, but it's not the. But a book is far more challenging, and you need to have some form of structure around how you're going to write it, which isn't the easiest thing to do when you're working and got a family.
Yeah.
It's true. It's true.
Thank you, Steve. That's an interesting insight. We do have a couple of questions in the chat now, Ezekiel.
Okay.
The first one is, what legal problems could occur when you publish?
Yes. The big one, which I've actually read quite a number of stories recently, is if you plagiarize, then that's a danger, and that's ethics. I didn't have time to go into ethics. The case with plagiarism is using information that belongs to somebody. So somebody has published either an article, it could be newspaper, journal, or book, and you go and get information from there and publish it as your own. without acknowledging them, then that's plagiarism. In days past, people could get away with it. But these days with technology, people can cross-check, fact-check you, and if they pick it up, then you could be charged for plagiarism. And so I've seen many journals retracting articles, because some of the people have been found to copy the information without referencing. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't use other people's work. You can use people's information, but acknowledge it. Once you get information, said, okay, this is the source of that information. So people will know that it's not your own information. So that's one big challenge that we should be mindful of. It's part of ethics. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. And there's another question. Is there any particular referencing method that we need to use, like Harvard referencing, while we publish?
Yes, there are different referencing styles. While Harvard is popular, and that's the one I tend to use, what will determine the referencing style will be the publisher. So if you target, for example, you want to publish an article in QSI may say use any type of referencing style. So that means you are free to use, whatever style you choose. But some publishers will insist we want Harvard. Some will say we want APA. So it's the publisher that will, determine which one you use. So when you've put your article together, or you may decide where you want to publish before you start writing, then you can see the referencing style they want and you follow it. If not, when you've put the publication together and then you've decided, okay, let's target this outlet, then they will normally provide an auto guideline where they'll say, okay, this is how you format the paper, this should be the length, this is the referencing style you should use, and then you follow that guideline.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any more questions out there quickly before we wrap up? Nothing else in the chat. I can't see any hands up. So I think that's probably it. So thank you, Ezekiel. Thank you.
Oh, no, thank you so much for the opportunity.